Hello students, I hope you all are doing amazing. So let us start with an interesting chapter on Galileo Galilei. So Galileo Galilei was an Italian astronomer. He was one of those scientists who changed people's belief about the universe. So what do we mean by astronomer, students? So astronomer is someone who studies about the universe, planets and galaxies and our whole planet. So the person who studies and is interested and researches about all these universe patterns is known as astronomer. So Galileo Galilei was an amazing astronomer and he was an Italian. Who would think that one person could change the way we see the universe? So now the narrator is saying that who would think, किसने सोचा होगा ऐसा, that one person could change the way we see the universe? Who would even try to change this belief about the universe? However, it really happened more than 400 years ago. It happened because one man dared to think differently. So now Galileo Galilei, who is an Italian astronomer, is changing belief about everyone, is changing the perception about universe. So in the chapter we are going to see that how Galileo researched about universe and stated that it is not the earth which stands still but is revolving and rotating at every moment. So he did a very amazing invention that we are going to talk about in this chapter. So let us see, students. You see, back then the people thought that the earth stood still. So back in those days, 400 years ago, people used to think that earth was still. Earth is not rotating and revolving and it is standing still. And it did not spin around the sun. As we know that the earth spins around the sun, but 400 years ago, everyone thought that it was a sun which revolved around earth. The earth was the center of the universe and everything, including sun orbiting the earth. So everyone used to think at that time that it was not the earth but sun was the one who used to orbit around the earth. What do we mean by orbit, students? Orbit means something which is circling the earth. So everyone thought that sun is circling the earth and sun is the center of the earth, which was very wrong. Well, that is not really true. So now the narrator is saying that it is absolutely wrong, but everyone believed in it. It was true then. Also, nobody wanted to argue against it because they feared being thrown into the prison of facing some terrible punishment. So the people who thought otherwise, the people who thought that sun was the center of the universe, so the people who actually thought and believed that the sun was the center of the universe were very terrified of telling this in public to everyone because they feared getting jailed at that time or getting a very terrible punishment. So everyone just kept on thinking happily that the earth stood still in space, and it made sense really, because no one can ever feel that the earth is moving, right? No one can feel that the earth is moving bit by bit. So everyone thought that the earth is still and everyone in the universe was circling or orbiting the earth, even the sun. But then Galileo Galilei was first astronomer to find out what the universe was made up of and what actually goes on in the solar system. So now the Galileo Galilei has researched, is researching, and now he is coming out and becoming a real breakthrough and telling the world that it is not the earth which is standing still, but Earth is actually moving around and orbiting around the Sun just like all the other planets. On 15th of February 1564 in Pisa, Italy, a little boy was born and his surname was Galilei. His parents must have liked poetry because they didn't call him something ordinary like George Galilei or Fred Galilei. They called him Galileo Galilei. He probably didn't mind having a different name though, at least it was easier to remember. So now the narrator is making a very quirky remark on Galileo Galilei. Now the narrator is saying that the parents of Galileo Galilei must have read some poetry, must have liked some poetry, because they didn't name their son something ordinary like George Galilei or Fred Galilei, but they named him Galileo Galilei, which was a very extraordinary name for the world, and no one could even forget that name because it was so unique. When Galileo grew older, his father wanted him to be a doctor. So when Galileo grew up, his father wanted him to become a doctor. So he sent him to the university to study medicine. Many of Galileo's ancestors, so what do we mean by ancestors, students? Ancestors means dada pardada, right? So our fathers and forefathers, right, were doctors. So Galileo's fathers and forefathers were doctors. So his father, Galileo's father, always wanted Galileo to become a doctor. So he was expected to follow their footsteps. In 1581, he joined the University of Pisa as a medical student. So in 1981, he joined the medical student as a medical, repeat. So in 1581, he joined the university as a medical student. At the university, a friend, Ostilio Ricci, changed the course of Galileo's life by introducing him to mathematics. So now a very life-changing person came in the life of Galileo, who advised him to take up math, to be interested in more and more in mathematics. Galileo realized that he didn't really enjoy studying medicine. So eventually Galileo started realizing that he doesn't like medicine. So he started putting his interest in medicine. He now wanted to study mathematics and astronomy. So he left the medical school and became a mathematician instead. So eventually he decided to leave medical school and started becoming interested in mathematics and astronomy eventually, and left his medical school. When he was 17, Galileo noticed a lamp swinging overhead in a cathedral in Pisa. In those days, lamps were hung by long rods from the ceiling. Curious to find out how long it took the lamp to swing back and forth, he would use his pulse to time the long and the short swings. Galileo discovered something that no one else has ever realized. Whether long or short, each swing took exactly the same time. So what is happening in this paragraph, students? At the age of 17, Galileo noticed a lamp swinging back and forth, swinging back and forth. So now Galileo is examining his pulse. His pulse, what do we mean by pulse? It is the nerve at our hand, at the end of our arms, right? So now he is noting down the swing back and forth of the lamp and the pulse, and now which eventually became the invention of clock, right? So this discovery was found useful for making and running clocks. So this little incident which he observed very minutely, students, that just the swinging of lamp back and forth and matching it with the pulse in his arms, he could make and invent and discover the running clocks. Galileo became famous and was soon the head of department of mathematics at student for this amazing discovery that he just made. In his spare time too, Galileo would do various things. He experimented with all sorts of things. He put water in a glass bulb and noticed that the level of water rose if the glass was heated and fell as it was cooled down. He had invented the first ever thermometer. Right, students? So how was the first ever thermometer invented? When Galileo was just sitting in his spare time. So what did he notice? He noticed that whenever he was cooling the water which was there in the glass bulb, it was going down. And when the water was boiling up, it was going up. And as we have seen in the thermometer, when the temperature rises, repeat. And as we have seen in the thermometer temperature, students, when it is very hot, the temperature lid goes up, and when the temperature is down, it goes down, right? So it became a invention, the first ever invention of thermometer. In 1609, Galileo heard about a new invention called the telescope, which had been made into two lenses. So in 1609, he heard about a new invention which was done by someone else. It was telescope, and now he became curious about it. So he bought one telescope and he decided to build a telescope and use it to look at the universe. So now he got the telescope and he started looking at the universe because he was also interested in astronomy. So he started on with that. Until then, people had only been able to guess what the universe was, but Galileo was actually going to look at it and find out the truth. So now everyone have always been in the history been curious about how the universe or our galaxies or suns and the stars actually looked, but now Galileo has taken up the task to actually see how the universe will look like and make another research on it. So he built a telescope that made things appear to be 20 times bigger than they actually were. So he improvised the telescope that he has got and made certain changes in that and made the things appear to be 20 times bigger. He made a new telescope, improvised the telescope. He looked at the Milky Way and discovered that it was made up of millions of stars, each at the different distance from Earth. If the universe was really a glass sphere, what do we mean by sphere, students? What do we mean by sphere, students? Sphere is a kind of a circle. So now he is questioning that if the universe was really a glass sphere, as everyone thought it was, all the stars would be at the same distance from Earth. So now he is questioning that if the whole universe was just a sphere, or just a circle, a 3D circle, so every distance, so the stars would be at the same distance from Earth. Everyone at that time thought that the moon was a smooth surface, a smooth round ball. Galileo discovered that it was not so. So from this telescope, he is making many discoveries and he is telling the world that what they actually believed in the past was false, and now he is going to reveal the truth of the galaxy and of our Milky Way, about our stars and suns and the whole universe in particular. When he looked at the moon, he discovered mountains, valleys and craters on it, which means everyone thought that the moon was a smooth surface, students, but it wasn't. It had many mountains, pahad. Okay. He observed that the planets Mercury and Venus pass through phases just like the moon. The only way they could do that was if they circled the sun and not the earth. So now Galileo is making a breakthrough research, and now he is saying that if the planet Mercury and Venus pass through just like the moon, they could not have been circling Earth, but they should be circling Sun. So there is some kind of contradiction, some kind of lie that the world is believing in, and the Galileo is actually finding that out in the end with his just a telescope. In addition to these discoveries, Galileo also discovered that everything falls at the same speed. So the next invention that the Galileo is making one after the other is that he is finding out that everything falls at the same speed. If you jump off a bridge at the same time as the elephant, you would both hit the water at the exactly same time. So if you jump off the bridge and an elephant also jump off the bridge, you both will end at the same time in the water. There wouldn't be any difference. Galileo dropped 2 balls off the Leaning Tower of Pisa. One was very heavy and one was light. Both hit the ground at the same time. So now he is actually proving his hypothesis. He is saying that both the things, he went on the top of Leaning Tower of Pisa and he dropped a very heavy metal and a very light feather kind of metal, and he dropped it from the biggest tower, which is the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and now he is saying that both of them are going to hit the ground at the same time. The most important thing about Galileo's discovery was that he was not guessing. He wasn't guessing anything. Every statement he made, he had a research supporting that statement. The most important thing about Galileo's discovery was that he was never guessing. He could clearly prove that anyone that what he had discovered was true. He could demonstrate and repeat his experiments to do so. So now he is making a statement and he is proving himself right with every experiment. Galileo spends many happy hours looking through his telescope. So in his happy hours, he used to sit and look at the telescope and examine the universe. After some researches, he realized that what everyone believed about the earth standing still was actually wrong. So now in the end, after researching so much on the universe and galaxies and reading that for years and years, now he is telling and coming out in the world telling that it is not the earth which stands still. Earth revolves and rotates around the sun. So we'll see what happens next with Galileo. He realized that what everyone believed about the earth standing still was actually wrong. In fact, the earth revolves around the sun. This had already been stated by Copernicus. Galileo began to publish papers about his discoveries. So now he is not just stopping on telling the world that he has made a huge discovery. He is writing papers about his discoveries so that younger generation can also get inspired and learn from it. This enraged many people. So Galileo had to face inquisition and was asked to write a paper of apology for making up silly stories. So now what do we mean by inquisition, students, here? Inquisition means that he had to answer so many questions, so many stupid questions from all the people who were doubting his research, and all these people were very angry on Galileo. What do we mean by apology, students? Apology means that he was made to write a sorry letter and everyone thought that he was making a silly story that earth never stood still. They ordered him to declare that earth never stands still and that the sun revolves around it. So now the people are pressurizing Galileo to say that the earth stands still and it doesn't revolve around the sun. He should say that. Of course, it wasn't scientific truth. It wasn't scientific truth, so Galileo never accepted it. So Galileo just went on writing about his work and he even published a book on it. He never believed, he never got pressurized by anything, that the people were telling him to write an apology, a sorry letter. He didn't do it, and he even published a book about it. This made the Inquisition so angry that they sentenced him to life imprisonment. So every person got angry around Galileo, and they got angry that why is he publishing a book about stupid stories that he is making. They all thought this, and he was sentenced for life imprisonment. By then Galileo was quite old and not in good health, so they put him under house arrest. What do we mean by house arrest, students? House arrest is when people are not allowed to leave their house and to only stay and being confined in their house. So they don't have to leave their house, they are only supposed to stay in the boundaries of their house. This meant that he had to stay at home all the time and was never allowed to go out. Galileo just went on studying the universe, doing his experiments and writing books without taking much notice. He did not mind being in his house anyway. So he was under house arrest. He was given the punishment of house arrest, but he never minded that because he was always interested in looking at the universe and researching more and more. And house arrest actually gave him a lot of time to research on all the things he was actually interested in. Galileo was indeed brave to dare to be different, and we are all very glad that the earth isn't still, because if it was, it would tremble in the space and we would all fall off. So now the narrator is making a very funny remark on all these people who thought that the earth was standing still and not revolving around sun. He is saying that earth isn't standing still because if the earth was supposed to be standing still, it would tumble. So what do we mean by tumble, students? It means that it would go here and there in the space and we would all fall off. We would started falling off. A popular legend told that Galileo, after publicly announcing that the earth does not move, arose from his knees and exclaimed, meaning, nevertheless, it does move. So now the popular legend is making this remark that earth does move. So this brings us to the end of the chapter, students. I hope you all enjoyed. Let us meet in the next class. Thank you.